So here's my usual caveat. I'm not a videographer. I'm not an actress. I make these videos just to give you a little extra information and to clarify my expectations regarding various projects. Today we're going to talk about the Super Nanny video review, or I am. So let's go into that tab in your menu. You'll notice that each group is assigned a specific video. So for instance, Ashley and Judy and Allie will be looking at the video of the Amori family. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you're locating and watching the correct video for your group. Before you do that, I want you to be sure that you've read all of the material in Unit 3 and that you've read very carefully the unit guidelines for this. So as you look at these guidelines, I want you to bear in mind that sometimes the videos are edited in ways that some of what you'd like to see is just not there. If that's the case, just make sure that you note that in your write-up, and I'll discuss that a little more as we go on. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to describe the problems or the unacceptable behaviors that are exhibited from the point of view of the nanny. So when these episodes begin, and almost all of them, what happens is the nanny goes in and just observes the family, sort of baseline, business as usual, and gets an impression of what the dynamics are and notes any things that she feels like need to be addressed in terms of improving the functioning of the family. So I want you to talk about what does the nanny notice and what are her concerns. And then I want you to think about what are the problems or the unacceptable behaviors that the parents perceive to be occurring. And so I want to know that point of view of each parent. Virtually all the time there's going to be a father and a mother. There are a few exceptions. It may also be that there's another significant adult. If there's another significant adult that lives with the family, describe the problems or spends a lot of time with the family, maybe I'll say that, like a grandparent that is integrally involved, then you'll want to explain the perspective of that person as well. Okay? For the third item, what you're going to do is you're going to discuss the family's strengths. And I am looking here only for strengths. So, what qualities or characteristics does each member of the family contribute, bring to the table that can be built upon in terms of improving the dynamics there? So I want you to look at the mother, the father, the children, again, any significant others that play a particular role in that family, and discuss, what are the strengths that that individual has that can be built upon as someone considers how to, make some changes in terms of behavior. Number 4 asks you to describe the target, or to describe the target behavior. Sorry, I scrolled too far. Target behaviors, and to conduct an ABC analysis on each one. So in all of these videos, you're going to see several things that are perceived as problematic in terms of children and sometimes actually adult behavior. And then I want you to try as best as possible to look at what occurs right before that behavior is exhibited, while the behavior is going on, or describe the behavior as it's going on, and then what occurs immediately afterwards. Always remember that a consequence is what occurs immediately after behavior. It doesn't have to be, we often think of consequences as negatives. Not necessarily so. A consequence is just what occurs immediately after that behavior, because that's going to be helping us to figure out what's reinforcing it, okay? This ABC analysis has to be done based on the behaviors that are there during that baseline observation before there's any intervention. So I don't want you to do the ABC, once the nanny puts things in place. I want you to do it prior to that. What do you notice, based on business as usual in that family, okay? Also, this is where you should consider that it may be that there are certain things that you cannot record because of video editing. So maybe you don't see what occurs immediately before the behavior. Just write that in your chart, not shown. Or maybe you don't see the consequence. So that's where, again, the way the video is edited may impact what. Then I want you to come back and list what is the nanny recommending. So the nanny will always, come up with a plan. What's the nanny's plan? And then for number 6, I want you to think about which specific behaviors is she targeting with each of her recommendations. So almost always there are several, okay? So with each of those recommendations, which behavior or behaviors is the nanny targeting for change? Then I want you to look at for number 7, how's the plan communicated to the children? So, how are the children informed that we're going to be operating differently in the family, and these are the ways that we're going to operate? And then I want you to also look at how is the plan communicated to the family members, to the mother, the father, any other adults that are going to play a significant role in implementation. And, you're going to look at not only sort of what's the method that's used to communicate, but also you can look at the tone that's used when that information is communicated and really try to describe to the fullest extent possible what occurs in that interchange. Number 9 asks you to look at the results of the intervention. What worked and which challenges persist? In answering this, it's going to be helpful to you. Usually what happens is the nanny comes in, makes some recommendations, practices with the family, stays with them, and tries to help them, put some new processes in place, and then leaves, but observes from afar. And so I want you to think about when the family's left there on their own, how effective is that intervention, okay? And that's what you're going to write up. And then for number 10, I want you to go back and think about what you would recommend that the nanny do differently. So remember that no matter how good any of us are, there's always the potential to improve our practice. And so I want you to make sure that you're going in and you're making recommendations on how the nanny could improve, okay? Number 11 just asks what tips for behavior management you learned from that episode that can be applied to classroom management. So what did you learn that you think you could transition or translate into classroom practice? You're going to use APA format for your references, as you will for every assignment in our class, and you must cite the video at a minimum. I would say really at a minimum, you're going to cite the video and probably some things out of your textbook. Okay? In terms of your presentation, you're going to summarize the results of your analysis. You're not going to be able to cover all 11 of those questions. So you need to be succinct, give us the high points, what's the problem, what are the strengths, what are the needs, how is that dealt with, how did it work? You need to at least select one significant event, a scene from the episode to share with the class and discuss how it influenced your interpretation of this video. So just choose a short video clip, show it to us, and tell us how it informed your thinking, okay? Let's go back over here. I'm going to close down those guidelines now, and I want you to, let's go in and look at the rubric. So one of the things that you'll notice is that this project is worth a total of 80 points. 55 of those points come from the content of your analysis. So there are 11 questions you have to answer. I didn't read the one on the guidelines, but there is a number 12 that you can answer that just says, what else do you want me to know? I'm not going to give you any points for that one. But for the 11 that are mandatory, 5 points apiece. And I'm really looking for how comprehensive is your response. I want to make sure that you don't have spelling or grammar mistakes, and that you demonstrate a high level of understanding of our course content as you're going through that analysis. So obviously the Super Nanny didn't read our book, or I don't think she did, and hasn't been discussing the things we've been discussing in class. But I want you to apply what we've been learning about and what you've read about in Unit 3 when you're looking and thinking about and analyzing those videos, okay? And then you get 15 points for your group presentation. It needs to be organized. It's going to need to be very carefully crafted so that you stick to the timelines that have been established. You need to be complete and comprehensible, but again, you're not going to be able to give me or give us as a group every detail that's in your written report. All group members need to participate in that presentation and to the greatest extent possible share responsibility and a role in that presentation. I'm looking for folks that communicate effectively, demonstrate enthusiasm and eloquence, and are actively engaged with each other and with our group. and certainly are able to offer some insightful answers to questions or respond appropriately to questions and comments. So that's 70 points out of your 80. The last 10 points, we're going to go again back into that Super Nanny guideline or Super Nanny video section, is the self-peer collaboration evaluation. There are potentially 10 points available to you for submitting this portion of the assignment. You'll go through, you'll download this form. You need to list yourself and the other members of your group, and then you need to allocate 100% of the points or 100 points across those group members. So you need to assign a percentage of those points to yourself and to the other members of your group. If you're giving someone a particularly high or a particularly low allocation, I mean, not a little different, but a lot different, then I'm going to want you to offer some justification for why you are assigning points as you did. Now, bear in mind that even if your group members give you 75% of all the points, I've never seen that happen, but let's just say it did, and they said basically you did this by yourself and, you know, they showed up every once in a while. If you haven't submitted a form yourself, you're going to get a 0 for that portion of this assignment. So just make sure that you and every other member of your group complete that self-peer collaboration evaluation. I'm really looking forward to seeing your presentations and reading the results of your projects. And usually I have to tell you that students find this one quite a bit of fun, so I hope that you do too.